Welcome to Life List, a birding podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Life List. Great to be back with you here. This is George Armistead, and I am with both Alvaro Jaramillo and Molly Brown. How are you doing, guys?
Hello.
Hey. Yeah, doing good.
Nice.
Feels like fall. Nice rainy day.
Sure does. Crisp and cool.
Yeah, here it's foggy in California. Oh, I mean, not California, but where I am, it's foggy.
Nice. That can be interesting too, I guess, for some of these birds.
Yeah, sometimes if you could see them, but yeah.
No short-tailed albatrosses out in the harbor there?
No. That turned out to be a false alarm. But well, we'll see a wild flying one of these days somewhere.
Yeah. Nice. What about you, Molly? I know you've been doing some seabirding. It seems like you've been all over the place lately. What have you been up to?
Yeah, a little bit. It doesn't feel like I've done a lot of birding. But a few weeks ago, I did go out on a Hatteras pelagic, which I had done, and I think I talked about this on a previous episode. My first pelagic was this spring in Hawaii. I was super nervous because I usually get really seasick. But we went off of Kauai and it was great. Alvaro was there. We talked about it. So I thought I'd try, slightly rougher waters in the east. And I love being out there and just seeing what birds are, 30 miles offshore or so. We had really great numbers and all the expected stuff. Nothing too crazy. I was, again, on a lot of medicine, so I was very happy and sleepy for a lot of it, but it was a lot of fun.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah. It wasn't too blustery out there for you, and did the black-capped petrels, easy for me to say, did they report for duty?
Yeah, we had great looks at them. I think the eBird checklist had 40 or so.
Oh wow, that's a good number.
We had good numbers from what I was happy with them anyway. Yeah,
that's awesome.
That was great.
Nice. Alvaro, what have you been doing, man?
Well, other than local birding, where there's a lot of geese showing up now. We're not in a place that gets a lot of geese. Central Valley in California get a lot of geese, but they've been kind of blasted out, offshore winds and all these kinds of weather phenomena. So that's kind of been fun. But we're wrapping up our pelagic season. We have one more scheduled trip. And last weekend, though, was one of those really great days out. And, you probably all heard about that big storm that came into the west, right? That was Sunday.
Yeah.
We were out offshore on Saturday, and there had been a front on Thursday. So we had this window, people are like, what are you doing? It's like, you're between the storm, but it was really the calm before the storm. And in fact, we had to, we were watching the weather knowing that the winds were going to pick up and so on. We had to get out not over an hour early, just leave, but just to avoid those winds that were coming in. But it was amazing. Like, we went out there and really close to shore. I mean, almost close enough. By 1 mile, I could have gotten Manx shearwater for my, local area 5-mile list for my house. So, we were, and for those that don't know, Manx shearwater is an Atlantic bird, shows up in the Pacific sometimes. We went further out, found whales, and eventually this big group of Rizzo's dolphins with northern right whale dolphins, with also groups of Pacific white-sided dolphins. And there was a Leach's storm petrel, which is really rare for us. Ended up seeing short-tailed shearwater, Laysan albatross, 5 species of shearwaters, 3 species of storm petrels, 2 species of albatross. And then we came back to port, and the northern gannet that's been hanging around in California was sitting there on the breakwall, like the best views we've ever had. Everybody was just like toasting it as one of the best, most exciting trips ever.
Wow.
And just sort of sandwich in between the storms, shorter than the usual trip, but it was just, it just was kind of magic how it all came together. One of those birding days that people, you just feel good about, and,
That's awesome.
it was super. Yeah, that was good. and the weather wasn't that bad, actually. So
that gannet's been out there a while now. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to say it's almost 10 years, so
yeah,
it's
that's wild.
Yeah.
I mean, he must be the loneliest gannet in the world.
I know. Wrong ocean. Again, it's weird to think we saw manx shearwater and northern gannet on the Pacific, but that gannet, we don't know if it's a male or female, but we call it Morris because, like the genus is Morus with a U. So
nice.
It's kind of a joke. Morris
basanus.
Yeah. So there's old Morris,
Yeah.
So
you could call him Mo Base if you really wanted to.
That's right. We could go Mo Base.
Yeah.
That could happen.
Yeah, I like that.
No, boy, so that's great. It's sort of a good way to wrap up the pelagic season.
Nice. Well, don't go getting everybody all our Atlantic birds. I'm hoping to start running some pelagics over here, and if you get everybody all our birds over there, then there's you're just leaving scraps for the rest of us here.
Well, don't be seeing wedge-tailed shearwaters on the wrong ocean or stuff like that.
No promises. No promises.
Later, we'll talk about what's allowed and what's not allowed.
Okay. Yeah, I'm amenable.
Some birds would just not be reported to eBird if they take away from, In fact, that's what we should do with endemics, country endemics. We should have like international protocol. If they're seen in a new country, they're just not reported.
Mm-hmm. So that they get blocked
just to maintain peace.
Yeah.
Block.
Yeah. No, I think that'd be really in line with the citizen science behind eBird. I think we should definitely pursue that. Yeah.
That's right. We'll just block them out from eBird so that all so Argentina doesn't have to fight with, Chile and Peru with Bolivia. It's just, keep it all happy. Nobody steals endemics. Endemic stealing's been happening much too often.
Yeah, it's not cool. Not cool at all. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The U.S. doesn't care right now, but wait till, red cockaded woodpecker is seen in Cuba. Oh boy, that would cause an international problem.
That would be infuriating. I would be incandescent with rage were that to transpire. Not allowed. Nope. Yeah. Well, speaking of other border crossings, Molly, I know you recently headed up to what my college professor used to call God's country up there in Canada. I think it was mostly a business trip though. Yeah. Did you enjoy yourself?
Yeah, I did. I was just in Nova Scotia, in and around Halifax, sort of a last minute thing. So I didn't have much prep time and not much free time for birding, but I picked up what I could. We had some outdoor meetings, so that was nice and convenient. But yeah, It was beautiful. I was totally blown away. I think we have a pretty nice fall showing usually here around West Virginia and in the mountains, but it was really pretty up there. I haven't really done like a New England fall trip or anything, but it was just gorgeous and just so many lakes and just picturesque views. So it was nice to just get out.
Leaves turning, the foliage looking good up there.
Yeah, it was perfect. Way different than here this year.
Yeah,
so that was really fun.
It's just starting around here. I was walking the dog and I found like one of these, like, I guess it's like a red maple, and it's just like, it's like sherbet orange, the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And I like stood there like, wow, like, what is this thing? I was just like blown away looking at it. The dog's like, can we go? And I was like, oh, right. Yeah. Yeah. We can keep moving. Yeah.
That's really cool.
I've never been to the Maritimes or to Newfoundland. It's sort of kind of a beacon of interest that I have to get out there one day.
Yeah. I've always wanted to do a summer trip up to Newfoundland. So now I'm hoping I return soon for more meetings and actually extend it. But it was pretty cool.
Yeah, high on my list too.
Molly, did you do enough commerce that you ended up like having a bunch of Canadian coins on you and you suddenly realize you're walking around with 40 pounds worth of money?
No, I can't say I did.
Okay, so you were all digital because the coins are huge, the toonies.
The toonies and the loonies, right?
The loonies and the toonies. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, and I hadn't really handled like dollar bills, but they're so plasticky. I didn't realize how different their money was.
Yeah, you can put them through the wash, and then they'll still come out nice. Not like American money, just disintegrates in the wash. Let me tell you,
disintegrates everywhere as far as I can figure. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I've got a lot of Canada I want to do as well. I've got. I'd like to do a summer trip as well. I'd like to do a winter trip up there, do the gulls and do the, frigid north, and maybe see St. John's, and in early winter when there's still quite a few songbirds coming around and concentrated up there. I think that'd be a ton of fun. And one of the places I am dying to go, which I feel like is a little bit of a kind of a secret spot, but becoming less so all the time, and certainly after this week, is and I don't even know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, is Tadoussac in Quebec, where it kind of hit people's radar. What was it, like 3-4 years ago, when Ian Davies and a handful of other folks were up there, and the Canadians and the Quebec folks I know have been doing migration counts there at Tadoussac for years, and have known that it's a real concentration point. But I think it was Memorial Day weekend a few years ago, they had just astronomical flight and astronomical numbers, and it's like 6-figure Blackburnian warblers in a day, and like 70,000 Tennessee warblers, and they've got video of these things flying between people's legs and going crazy.
You have to wear a puffy jacket so they bounce off you.
Yeah. It's like flying darts. Got to be careful up there. Somebody might lose an eye.
Especially Tennessee. Yeah, Tennessee. We could.
Oh yeah,
really
real sharp. Yeah,
real sharp beak on those.
Good for nectaring, but man, if they hit you in the eye, no good at all. Yeah.
I have a list of bookmarks of eBird checklists I like, and that's one of them. And I just like to pull that up and look through it and try to comprehend it sometimes.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling. I've got to do that someday.
It really is.
Yeah, and then of course the big news this week was they've got a banding station up there going now, and they caught this tyrant flycatcher, and I think they were trying to decide. I forget what they were trying to decide what it was, like, just generally, right? And then somebody I think was like, "This looks like an Elaenia," and then Alvaro, I know you got onto that and produced that nice video. Folks should definitely check that out. But yeah, walk us through that bird, Al. I mean, that's a bird I've seen them a lot down there in South America, but I certainly don't know them the way you do.
So I woke up and had this message, of like Elaenia, white-crested Elaenia in Tadoussac, right? I think is it Tadoussac? That's the pronunciation. I don't know.
I couldn't say.
Big accent on the final.
You're the Canadian expert here.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll have people phone in. Yeah.
Not just a rockhound. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I was like, oh my God, this is great. Like, and I look at these pictures, I'm like, oh God, this, I think this looks like a small-billed Elaenia. And I just posted very quickly. I think it's a small-billed Elaenia. I'll give you more info later because I had to do a bunch of things. Then I thought, I could write this elaborate Facebook post or something and explain, or I could actually put together a few photos that I have and make a little video of what I'm talking about. That's what I did. And sort of thinking about the two most migratory species that look like this, the Chilean white-crested Elaenia, which is a population that's different from the resident white-crested Elaenias, and then this small-billed Elaenia. And one of them is essentially a Patagonian forest, the Chilean one, essentially. It extends a little further north. And then the other one is in the east. So Uruguay, southern Brazil, Argentina, and they both migrate well to the north in South America, like real long distances. I know people sort of think, oh, it's all South America. It's pretty, but these are big distances. So these guys if they go 180 degrees the wrong direction when they're trying to get south again, right? So they're wintering in, let's say, Venezuela. They're trying to get south, but their compass is off. They go the opposite direction, north, and they wind up in Tadoussac, right? So that's why these two are the main ones that might appear in North America, and I looked through others, and it's like, well, it doesn't look like them. And then I went through the ID, which you can watch the video for the ID, but I think it's a small-billed Elaenia. They have feather for DNA, so it'll be an interesting test of like, is Alvaro just BSing, or
right,
or does or is there something to this? Like watching them over the years,
well,
just putting together thoughts on what they look like.
I saw it. You did an excellent job with it, as anyone would expect, and you know those birds so well. Two questions. Okay. One is that definitely what's happening? Is that these birds from these austral migrants, those two time flycatchers you mentioned, is that they perform one successful migration north and then they go the wrong way? Or is it possible that the first migration they do, they just completely overshoot their wintering grounds and actually are knocking around in the boreal forest of Canada or Minnesota or who knows where, the interior, someplace where they're not found. And then when the boreal fall hits, they try to move again, either due to weather or I don't know, whatever influence, and then they get found at migration sites, or could both of those things happen? I guess that's one question. The other question is, like I said, I've seen quite a few of these birds, but in my limited experience with them, I feel like small-billed and white-crested, Chilean white-crested, are not actually that hard to separate in my experience. Like, I feel like white-crested always has a real obvious white crest, and small-billed just doesn't usually shows like a pretty rounded head. And so are they as hard as people think? And what do you think about how they get into the wrong spots?
Well, the first one, you really don't know, do you? Like, you're just looking at what shows up. But wouldn't you have a bunch of spring records? California vagrants, for example, we have spring warbler vagrants, and they're often not exactly the same ones as the fall vagrants. And so thinking of California as a test scenario on most of these fall vagrants are sideways mirror image kind of vagrant, rather than
90
sort of
degree or 180 degree. Right? Yeah.
And then you think, okay, so why aren't the, my thought is that the ones that don't perform the first migration correctly, so a small-billed Elaenia that goes south or off to some other spot in the first southern hemisphere autumn, they're going to show up somewhere else. Like, those are the ones that show up as vagrants in Chile or somewhere else. And they may not make it back. They may or may not. And then to me, it just seems like it's logical that you could get some issue kicking in that isn't lifelong, that kicks in that first migration southward where they go, oh, I think I'm going south, but I'm actually going north. So, but I don't know, until we get to the point where we have little transmitters that we could, put on things,
Yeah, which we're closer to all the time, of course.
Yeah. Elaenia identification, if you see juvenile white-crested Elaenias, they have no white and they have a really small crest.
Right.
But the juveniles, you're not going to see at this time of year. The juveniles you would see during the southern hemisphere fall, which would be kind of February, March, April. So I think they might not be that difficult to separate, but it takes experience. And I think most North American birders just have never had to do it. So, and there are other things that are, lesser Elaenias and olivaceous Elaenias. If you add those in the mix, you're like, oh boy,
then it would get a lot more complex. Yeah. I was really thinking about these two separating these two austral migrant species. Yeah.
Elaenia is a nice name.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yeah. Anybody who's expecting, might think about Elaenias. It'd be a beautiful name for a child. Yeah.
Right. Phoebe Elaenia. And then, people would be like, do you like birds? Yeah, that kid would never like birds. That kid would be like a bird hater after being called Phoebe Elaenia. But
could be a tough
I
road.
think. I don't know. Be tougher to be called Watson, though.
Yeah. Or Parallaxia.
Yeah.
Phainopepla.
That's kind of nice, actually.
Cowbird.
You just call him Pepla. Cowbird.
Yeah. There's some beautiful bird names, and then perhaps some not so beautiful ones. That's worthy of consideration. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, interesting stuff on that. And I feel like we could really dig into, you and I have talked quite a bit about the austral vagrancy situation, and it's fun to kind of peel back the layers there and think about how these birds get where they get, and where they're coming from and what their journey might be. So pretty cool on that, Elaenia. And of course, I know the Chicago folks are all thinking, man, if they can count that, this gets accepted as small billed up there, then, we can count that Elaenia that showed up in Chicago 10 years ago or so when, which I think you and I and a number of others all pretty certain that was a small build as well.
There's stuff happening in the background.
Oh boy.
Don't want to give it away.
Heavens to Murgatroyd. Gossip to be told.
Yeah. I gotta admit, I don't know if, Molly, you've been down to places where there's a bunch of Elaenias, but even though I identify them and I spend my time with them, I can't stand like a Elaenia that shows up that's not calling and I'm on a tour, because then you have to put your neck out and say, oh, it's whatever. But
it's nice when they call.
They're just like impidnax in a way. Like,
yeah,
I always feel a certain level of stress, like when I'm non-calling impidnax. I feel like I'm equipped to deal with it, but I don't want to do it on the spot.
Yeah.
I don't know if you feel similarly, or your thoughts, both of you as birders. What do you think about that?
Well, I think there's the scenario when I'm out birding, and then a guiding scenario. And I think how much I care, how stressed I am is totally different in those two situations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's like, if you're by yourself and you see something you don't know, you're like, oh, well, let's tease this apart. Let's spend some time on this. This will be fun. But if you got people like, so what is it? Can I count it? Yeah, can I count it? What is it? What is it? What is it? And you're like, I'm trying to figure that out.
Yeah, give me time.
Yeah. Well, that kind of is a good segue, because those birds, they are often vocal, and that helps us tremendously when they are. And we've been getting some good feedback from folks. One of the regular questions we get, all of us on tour and in general, especially new birders particularly, I think, are really amazed when you can identify birds not just by sight but by sound. We were going to talk a little bit today about ear birding and learning bird vocalizations, tricks for how you learn them, what you listen for when you're listening for birds. So maybe perhaps we can talk about some of our favorite bird vocalizations as well. Like Molly, what would you say if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I am, I'm digging into this ear birding thing. I am ready to try to figure this out." Maybe you have advice for those folks that are ready to give it a shot.
Oh gosh. Well, opening remarks on this discussion. I'm quite fond of birding by ear. I think I'm happier hearing birds than seeing them. And I just enjoy the challenge of it too. But that certainly was not always the case. I don't know, 10 years ago or so, I was getting more and more into birding. And was totally neglecting birding by ear. Until one day I decided I'm going to spend 6 months. It was like a few months before spring migration. And I was like, this is going to be my season to really start nailing this down. So I went out and I thought, okay, I'm going to start with something super common. I'm going to memorize northern cardinal. And then it was like, okay, they make 15 different sounds that I hear on like my morning walk. And it was so hard to get over the hump of just learning the common species. But that's what I focused on. I mean, I picked very basic things, the most common warblers. I was really just focusing on that like 1 mile walk that I took my dog on out my door every morning. It was just picking out the common stuff there and trying to nail that down and start sorting it out by Camp A, something I recognize, or Camp B, something I don't. And then start kind of adjusting my ear, you know, as migration was building up, hearing more and more in a dawn chorus, filtering out what I don't know, tracking that down, finding it, going through the whole process of like watching a bird sing to actually, you know, commit it to memory. I would take a guess. This sounds so nerdy, but I would like make myself guess what bird it was and actually consciously think through why I thought that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Go find the bird and then decide if I was right or wrong and go from there. So that's kind of how I got started. So it's just, I still think like I'm building on that, and I mean, I'm, you know, comfortable with the birds around West Virginia now. And if I hear a chip or something I don't recognize, it's still like, okay, this falls in Camp B. Let's go find it. So it's kind of a muscle memory for the pattern that I use now. Anyway.
Yeah. Definitely. I hear the muscle memory thing is so true, right? Like I feel like every, you know, and I started out really visual as well, and evolved into more of an oral, if you will, an audio birder as well. It took me a long time. And I think it was like you were saying, actually seeing something like a house wren. You know, you hear the song, but then to actually see the whole bird's body quivering and the tail, you know, moving all over the place. When you see how animated a bird is when it's singing, I think then you think, boy, this is, you know, they make some cool sounds, but when you see how much the sound means to the bird, then it really becomes like, okay, I want to learn more about this. I want to get into this. And so I kind of did the same thing where I started being like, okay, if I don't recognize something, track it down, you know, chase it down, try to figure it out. And then, and the muscle memory is a real thing. Like it happens to me all the time still, where I will hear a sound that I know, especially if it's like out of context, if I'm listening to something on television or a movie, and I'll be, I know that call, I recognize that call, but I cannot remember what it is. You know, like I recognize that sound. And I find that especially with like warblers in spring, for years, it took me a long time before like, you know, I'd be like, okay, yeah, that's, like a parula or whatever. Like, you know, I took multiple seasons before I kind of was able to incorporate that sound into like, you know, kind of burn it into your brain. But with other stuff, it's still, I kind of have to hear it every year to be, and track it down to be sure. But I like that process. Yeah.
Well, like you said, hearing it like in a movie or somewhere out of context too, then you're really challenging yourself. Same with like, you know, the flycatcher identification. Okay, if you're seeing something in Canada that should be in South America, then it's like, whoa, you don't have the context that at least I realize I rely on so much to put with that. But speaking of the muscle memory, this can be a future episode, but I know, Alvaro, you do a whole talk on like birding fast and slow and developing those muscle memories. So I'm throwing that out there that we need to devote an episode to that at some point.
Oh yeah. But I think that what you said about like doing the 1 mile walk and your dog walking, kind of hearing birds, that's really key. So it's, you know, what people call patch birding, going back to the same place sort of over and over and over again. And it's one of the best ways to learn birds in all ways, because you've decreased the variables in a sense, right? I feel like if you were trying to learn Spanish, right, you would go to a place where everybody speaks Spanish. That would be the best way to do it, you know? So you go to, you know, Guatemala. But the way birders try to learn birdsong is almost like somebody trying to learn Spanish at an international airport, where like there's, every language being spoken,
Yeah, totally.
and you're kind of trying to pick out what's going on. Birders tend to go, oh, okay, I'm gonna go here today because it's hot, and a rare bird showed up over there. I'm gonna go over there. So you're going all over the place, and you don't have like this focus of like decreasing your variables that makes you able to sort of make sense of things, right? So I think it's really what you're doing is exactly in the birding fast and slow world would be what you should be doing, like kind of really, I want to learn birds, hearing, what they sound like and so on, decrease the variable somehow.
Yeah.
Don't be all over the place. Yeah.
Well, then it's so
focused,
cool to see. Yeah. Then you're seeing like the patterns because, even like at your feet or whatever, you have your typical birds, and at least sometimes you can pick out individuals or see what's changing. So then it's not just seeing the calls, but seeing like where and when and why they're using the calls and why it's something different this day. And like you really start to get more of like not just memorizing what they're saying or calling, but actually getting a lot more depth to that whole world that the birds are using to communicate.
Yeah.
Yeah, was it some of our friends call it birding? You go without your binoculars, just to
naked birding.
Yeah, naked birding.
Naked
Birding.
Yeah. To me, I think also ear birding is where even experienced birders have some level of concern about how well they're doing.
Absolutely. Yes.
And so if you're out there and you're leading a trip with neophyte birders, you feel very confident in your hearing, abilities. But if, Michael O'Brien is sitting next to you, you basically go,
nope. Yeah.
So, what was that, Michael? There's an element that is different than visual, identification. In a sense, a lot of people feel much more confident on visual identification, and just our brain works differently with audio info. And I sometimes have to learn things, make a spectrogram to actually visually see what the difference is between a song sparrow and a Buick's wren, multi-part songs, and then just sort of identify, like song sparrows never have buzzes. They might have trills, but they don't have buzzes, or they don't have chunk notes, like interspersed. And I was like, oh, those are all wren things. So then I incorporate that into my thinking. Okay, so if you hear a bunch of buzzes or little chuck notes okay, that's the wren. And they can be harder. A lot of these birds are harder than you think when you lose your confidence with them. Very simple things sometimes for us here, like, Steller's jay and California scrub jay, most of the time they just come very obvious. And then there's other times where you're just like, which one is that? And your brain goes kind of blank. And if you have some structure behind it where you go, okay, one of them does this and one of them does that. And the only way that I can get that structure is often by seeing it visually in a computer-generated spectrogram, which is sort of the way my brain works,
Yeah. I sit there and like trace with my hand. I follow the song with my hand because I'm completely visualizing that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's next level, Molly. It took me forever to even understand how a spectrogram works. Like, I've finally gotten into recording more. Like I was into it for a little while, but I've kind of gotten back into it, using the phone and trying to, I enjoy building my media library in eBird. So I'm like trying to get better about recording. And I kind of look on the illustrated checklist for some of my local patches. And I'm like, I'm going to try to add more stuff. So I look at the spectrogram, but hasn't been an effective way to date for me to learn stuff. But I certainly agree that, it's true that I suffer from that trepidation you talk about, Al, where at times I think people don't realize too that, or don't think sometimes that, sometimes you don't see something well. Like you catch a flicker of not the bird, but you just catch like a brief sighting of something and you can't be sure what it was. And the same thing is true for some of the sounds, right? Sometimes you hear something, but you don't hear it well. And so there's a difference between hearing something well and being like, I know that's what that is, and just catching something and be like, am I hearing this?
Yeah.
Well, okay, question for both of you. Do you consider yourselves like musically inclined?
Do you consider punk rock music?
Or 90s hip hop?
Yeah, I'm just, I think about this and kind of separate.
Not, yeah.
It seems like more than the average number of birders are, or have like grown up around music a lot more closely. And I kind of just observe that. I guess I don't have any conclusions to make, but I think that there's the train of thought, and I'm not someone who's ever had like formal music lessons or anything, but just different ways that people use sound and like how you interpret it and learn it, which happens visually as well, I guess, but I don't think that we talk about that process as much.
Yeah, that's true.
I would say that in leading people around, there have been some very musical people, like professional musicians, that have told me that they cannot do bird sound, that it doesn't function in their head like music, and others who have been like amazing with bird sound that aren't musically inclined. And then also the expectation, some musically inclined people who know music and can almost use that as a tool set to explain what they're hearing. So it seems to be like all over the place. Like, I would say there's no correlation, but it can be a thing. Like there are.
Well, you're shooting my theory pretty hard here.
I know. I gotta say I am from.
That's all right.
Put it this way, though.
Yeah, I'm not. That's my experience from.
I do think there's like. I remember. I forget who it was, Alvaro. I don't know if it was you or somebody else was saying how a lot of people, they don't even really try to learn bird sounds. Some people just think that's next level. That's too difficult. That's too much to tackle. That seems, just overwhelming somehow. And I remember one of a colleague somewhere saying, what I tell people is that if you can recognize Happy Birthday, the song Happy Birthday, from just the first few notes, like happy, like if you can just recognize it from that, then you can.
Now I got it in my head.
Yeah, it's a quality song. Yeah, but if you can recognize it from just that little snippet, which virtually anybody can, then you can learn bird songs too, and it becomes just recognition. But I do think also there are people, like I've been around people with perfect pitch, and I think they process bird sounds in a different way, is in my opinion.
One thing is to recognize, the other thing is memory for song. That's a different thing.
Yeah. So I think too, people underestimate, like, you don't have to necessarily identify the species by sound to make it useful, because you get so much out of just the spatial awareness of what's around, or just kind of picking up on the type of sound and what that could clue you into what the bird's doing to find it. Or just whether or not you can identify it, recognizing if it's something familiar or not too. I mean, there are all sorts of ways that bird sound can be helpful in identifying birds besides just knowing what bird is making the sound.
Yeah, it certainly helps with behavior too, if you can decide what kind of bird sound you're hearing, if it's a call note, if it's a song, if it's a scold, a contact call. They do make I think people don't necessarily always think about the different kinds of sounds that birds make and in what context.
George, you were saying about next level type stuff and bird sound, and I've thought the same thing about the nocturnal flight calls, and some, especially there's these younger hotshot birders who are doing all of this great stuff, figuring
really
out
cutting
these
edge,
little
some of that nocturnal
cutting edge.
Stuff. Yeah,
and I'm thinking like, you know what? I mean, this was even some years ago. I just don't know this stuff. I can't remember these calls. It's just like, maybe I'm just beyond this, and felt little trepidation with all this stuff and thinking, man, it's way too much. It's like next level stuff. And I don't get to hear them that much on the West Coast anyways. But I kind of got now I have a perfect reason to sort of say I can't do that. It's because I went half deaf, a few years ago. I've got a way out. I don't have to. I say I can't do it anymore. But I actually got to say I never was quite. That was just next level stuff to me. And sometimes you have to realize there's some things that just you're not necessarily going to have to do or necessarily are good at. And it's okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was never into that. And, I can tell you my deafness story too, if you want, but
yeah, I think it would be, as somebody who really, I know it must have been just a crazy experience for you in more ways than one. But yeah, and I'd be particularly curious to hear, I know how you lost the hearing in one ear, but you've picked some up again too, right? But maybe, you've had to relearn, I guess is what I mean to say, how
yeah.
to listen. And I think people would be interested to hear about that journey.
So, here, I'll back up and say that all of this happened, this episode of me losing my hearing, when I was on tour in Bhutan. And then people blame all sorts of things, I'm the traveler, whatever. The first actual information that I had that something was wrong happened while I was at home. So whatever it was, it happened at home, and it just happened to it finished me off when I was in travel. In fact, I was running on a Friday, let's say, and Monday I was to leave, or Sunday I was to leave for my tour. And I was running and I felt dizzy in my run in a weird way, like where I'd never felt dizzy like that before ever in my life. And I thought, well, that's weird. Maybe I didn't drink enough water. But as I got into my tour, and this is about 4 years ago, I realized that the dizziness kept on appearing like over the days, like it'd have little spells. And I would get this like vertigo dizziness with intense ringing in my ear, like a jet engine. And that's when I started saying, oh, there's something weirdly wrong here. And I had no idea what was going on. And I just sort of thought, okay, whatever this is, it'll go away. I could just sort of, I had no.
It'll pass.
It'll pass. I was deep into this tour, like several days into it. And it was, maybe 4 or 5 days. I actually, what I did, talk about eBird lists of note. I found the last eBird list as a hearing person, fully hearing person, 25th of April, 2017.
Wow.
And it was awesome because there was, we were at this river and there were shorebirds. So lesser sand plover was there, Kentish, little ring plover. I spotted I think it might have been my lifer Timming stint. And also a vagrant gull, my first ever slender-billed gull was there.
Nice. Of course,
and I was just going nuts, with all this stuff, and, really excited about what we were seeing. And then suddenly that dizziness came on and the intense tinnitus, and I couldn't stand up. I actually fell to the ground,
wow.
And all the tour participants and the co-guides are like, oh, what's going on? And I almost felt like it was, like a, Monty Python movie. Oh, I'll be all right. It was just a little flesh wound here, but suddenly I'm like sick as a dog on the ground and cannot stand up. And we had a good team of people help, the 2 guides and a driver who was also a birding guide. So they know the place backwards and forwards. So they said, there's a clinic right here. Let's go and, check you out. And it was where it started. They gave me some pain, some medication stuff, and they said, you cannot continue. You've got to go back to the hotel. So I went back to the hotel, and I thought maybe this would pass. And I left my scope with the group or whatever. And in the end, I had to just go to the city, and sort all this out. And I eventually went home, but the weirdest thing was sort of the day after is receiving a call basically to to figure out the appointment at the the guy who's going to come and get us, to go back to the big, the bigger city in Bhutan. And I'm go, hello, there's something wrong with this phone. I mean, I couldn't hear what was going on. And then suddenly, like, my eyes open. I'm like, oh crap, I think I can't hear. And I put it on the other side and I could hear. And I realized, like, I've lost all of my hearing, like all of it. It's just like from one day to the next. And I was still dizzy and so forth. And they patched me up. There's some really amazing doctors in Bhutan from India, actually. And, they said, there's a bunch of tests we can't do here. You better go home. So I went home. Tour actually ran perfectly well without me, which is, kind of, interesting to think about the fact that maybe I'm not that necessary. The people had a great time and they used my scope.
Nice. I'm sure it was because good. You set it up so expertly, Al.
That's right. It was exactly. It's just a great country to travel in. Yeah. I love Bhutan. I can't wait to get back. But so it started this whole thing of doctors and trying to figure out what happened, mysteries. They call it sudden sensory neural hearing loss. And it just means we have no idea why people lose their hearing. This is what it means.
Yeah.
It could be a virus. It could be all sorts of things. Viral issues might be the main ones, and that it attacks your inner ear. And then it's sort of like, oh, well, can you get a hearing aid? You can't, because your ear actually works. The eardrum all works. It's the internal connection between your inner ear and your nerve that doesn't work. So I went through all sorts of things that tried to fix it and nothing. And that tinnitus, or tinnitus, actually it's probably the way that people pronounce it. It's continued for years. And this spring, I was able, due to changes in what health insurance can cover here in the US, I was able to get a cochlear implant, which is pretty amazing, because it's the only sense that you can actually have a machine try and recreate out of all of our senses. We don't have anything else other than hearing, where we have like machinery that can sort of do it, but it's very basic. So, to tell you what I really lost, there were people who I remember used to sort of, in a good way, try to make me feel good about things by saying, well, at least you've got your other ear, and it makes sense, right? You're sort of like, you're just losing half your hearing, but it's way more than that. One of the things I learned was, just like with sight, you have three-dimensional, sort of viewing from having two eyes. It's the same with ears. So when you have only one ear, you can hear something, especially something loud, but you have no idea where it's coming from, and you have no idea if you should focus on it or not. It just, everything comes in as flat sound. So everything becomes scary. You have no idea where things come from. So you're in the Safeway or whatever, you're, shopping center or something, and noises are coming at you from all places, and you're just tense, and you're just really like, feel vulnerable because you have process. Right. Yeah. Somebody comes through with a cart and it just sounds like something is going to hit you. You have no idea. Yeah. So that was one of the main things that really freaked me out. It's like, oh, wow, I can't hear where things are coming from. But also your brain knows to focus on certain sounds. Like if you're talking to somebody, it knows, okay, that person's 5 feet away. I triangulate to that person. I know I'm talking to them and not to the people in the bar, all the other people. But if you have one ear, everything comes in solidly, flat. And that was really eye-opening as a birder to think, oh, I had all of these things that were available to me. Now they're gone. And then that whole 3D hearing thing is, you realize that you didn't just lose half your hearing, you lost 75% of your hearing. And with this implant, although it's really rudimentary and basic, and the sound is not even 1/10 of the quality, I can now hear things where they're coming from.
Wow.
And I feel more comfortable, like in places where I can hear things.
You can triangulate a lot more.
Triangulate better than before. I can hear when a car's behind me. It's been fantastic, and my brain is getting rewired to understand all of this noise, sound, not noise, but sound. And as it's gotten better, it's also the tinnitus has been dropping in that it's the brain isn't creating sound that it thinks it should be there, because you are getting a signal coming in. And it, involves surgery and so on, which was actually pretty easy. I didn't suffer much from the surgery.
How long have you had the implant now?
Since the spring. So it's many months of learning to do it. And in the US, it's brand new for most people who have single-sided hearing loss. Most cochlear implants have been done in the US on double-sided hearing loss.
I talked to somebody who had one done. I want to say this was a while ago, so I'm a little rusty on what they said, but I remember them telling me that it took them like 8 months to a year before they felt like they had fully kind of integrated it into their hearing, and that there was a learning period. And so you're experiencing that still now, I imagine. Yeah.
Right. And, it's always a cliche when something happens that's negative, that people will say, but there were some bright sides to all of this. And I have to say that there have been for me. And it's obviously, I don't want to say I want to give an arm and a leg for my hearing. That's just, I still want that arm and the leg, you still have the other leg, Alvaro, it's okay. No, but I would love to be able to go back, obviously, to having 2 working ears. Yet the ability to sort of understand focus and sort of how you listen for things, to pay attention to sounds, not just for identifying a bird, but just for the beauty of sound, and knowing about all this 3D stuff. And now I turn my head a lot more. As a birder, I would say to people, you're not hearing most of the things that are behind you. And you probably have a dominant ear. Mm-hmm. And even if have lost a little bit of your hearing, 10, 15, 20% on, let's say, one ear, you are not getting as much of that 3-dimensional sound as you think. And by turning your head, you're actually getting a better read on what you're hearing. I also, as somebody who goes out with people, sometimes older people, I've gotten a real understanding of kind of a compassion for the fact that we cannot see the same, we cannot hear the same, we cannot walk the same. And as a younger birder, I remember thinking like, can't you see that, the warbler's right there in the bush, and I'd be showing somebody with lacking the compassion to understand that maybe they couldn't see that because of whatever was going on in their physiology, right? So I think those things have been really kind of important and useful to me in a way that I may not have thought about those things before. And now I'm thinking about them, and I'm also thinking about how what really sort of pulled me through all this was the birds themselves. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people go through intense depression and all sorts of things that happen because you've lost your hearing. Maybe you become a little antisocial. You don't go to bars anymore because it's it's just too much, or you don't hang out with crowds of people, but going out to the woods or going out, birding for me was the only time I would feel normal. Mm-hmm. when I was sort of really in the first throes of getting used to this. And it's what kind of pulled me through. So I feel like now I owe it to the birds and owe it to people to also show them that birding has more benefits than just, the fun aspect of it. It's a real health thing. Like
it is.
I really feel like everybody in the world should be birding at
Absolutely.
one level or another. Everybody that it's going to be good for them. So that's my hearing story in kind of in a nutshell. Hopefully it wasn't too long winded, but
no, that's great. Yeah,
it's really interesting.
Couple points just to kind of follow up on that. One is which you talk about benefits of health in that birding brings, and I did want to mention our good friend Holly Merker has a book out, Ornithotherapy, and is doing all sorts of good work on that front, and definitely recommend people check out Holly Merker's work and about mindfulness and birding. And there are she could tell you all about people that have benefited in hyper stressful situations, and as a cancer survivor herself, and credits birds for getting her through a difficult time. Alvaro, your I think it was a YouTube video you did on this process, right? There's a friend of mine
for Holly. I did. Yeah.
Actually,
she's used it in some presentations, sort of as a test, not test case, but I guess somebody's experience where I already had birds in my life. If I hadn't had birds in my life, I don't know what that whole thing would have been like. Would have been really, really bad.
Well, I can tell you that there's a friend of mine who at 27 had the same exact experience that you did, and watched your video on it, and he said he found it very helpful. So I do. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine incredibly traumatic thing. But as you say, you adapt, you adjust, and it's an interesting, fascinating story. So thanks for that.
I think there's, when things happen that are bad or negative, people always sort of go right to that, like, why me, right? Why me? What did I do wrong? What did I? And sometimes, especially with some of these health things, they're so random that maybe because I'm a scientist and I watch natural events and the randomness of like a small-billed Elaenia getting to Quebec, that I felt some certain peace in the fact that why not me was the answer. And that's just sort of the way nature is. And you get hit with something, and you're sort of part of this random world. And I've found some weird, I wouldn't say peace or something, but explanation in that. The question for me was not why me, but why not me? So it's a little deep there. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I don't want to bring people down.
Nice. No.
That's not bringing people down. This is a good episode, guys.
Yeah. Well, we are coming up on the hour. There's a couple other things I wanted to touch on. First, Molly, any Halloween plans? Are you dressing up?
No Halloween plans. All of our free time lately, we just closed on property. We got 40 acres here around home. So all of our free time has been sorting out basically conservation programs and different offerings, which is really, really fun. But we're kind of in the middle of all these processes of working with NCRS, which is Natural Resources Conservation Service, and it's like a USDA thing, and some state level things on some golden winged warbler habitat, looking at like some Henslow sparrow habitat. Also looking at a program that I've been working with for the past year, which is a carbon sequestration program for small landowners. So that's my Halloween plans, is being out on the property and just making decisions on what's getting enrolled where.
Well, if you got golden winged warblers and Henslow sparrows on your property, I'm moving in for a couple of weeks come May. I'll tell you that. Man. Yeah.
I wish we had looked at it earlier so I could know our starting point. I don't know that we have Henslow sparrows on it right now, but I think we could. There could have been golden winged warblers there. I'm quite excited.
That is way cool. That is way cool. Very cool. Yeah. Nice. Al, you dressing up for Halloween?
We're gonna see. It might happen. There's still time, but I'm I'm leaving to go to Monterey tonight, partially to do a pelagic tomorrow, but also leaving because my teenage daughter is having a Halloween party here.
Oh, so you're getting out of Dodge.
I don't want to be anywhere near that, So, and Katya said, you better leave,
She's like, yeah, you just better, get out of here.
And I'm like, don't touch my bird books,
Yeah, so you're
George. How about you?
I'm not. I was really hoping you guys would have some good stuff. I don't have any plans. Maybe I'll go. I went, when I didn't want to dress up, I would say I'm going as a pedestrian. That's what I'm going to be for Halloween this year. Maybe I'll go as sort of a middle-aged birder this year instead. But no plans. I am going to a Halloween party. A good friend of ours, her birthday is Mischief Night, which I always think is like an awesome day to be like, yeah, my birthday's on Mischief Night. So we are going to a Halloween party where I gather some people will be dressed. It would not surprise me if Kristen actually already has a costume she hasn't told me about and shows up in some state of dress. And it could be even that she has plans for me that I'm unaware of. So if I do end up dressing up, I will share pictures but I have no such plans as of yet.
So online on Facebook and these places, there's pictures coming through of really good costumes people have created. I saw the best one ever. It was a kid.
Not Squid Game, because it seems like everybody's doing Squid Game.
No, yeah. This is old school. And it relates to us here. Kind of faux fur coat, little square kind of 60s purse, kind of bouffant hair do this girl's got. And then fake crows all around her, attacking her.
Wow.
So it looks like Tippi Hedren from The Birds. And it was awesome. Like, I was like, who thought of this? I'm like, great.
That's pretty sweet.
Look for it. That was good. Yeah.
That's darn good.
It was perfect.
Yeah. Wow. That's inspiring stuff right there.
I wish I could pull that off. If I could,
You don't think so?
Just weird if it was me.
With a bouffant, Alvaro. I think that'd be a good look.
Yeah. And might happen.
Worth a shot.
That'd do fake fur coat. It would have to be fake, of course.
Yeah. Faux fur.
Might not have any my size,
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, you're pretty boxy. Yeah. Nice. Well, a couple things we should wrap up here, but one thing I did want to mention is that Molly and I, as well as a number of other friends, are headed to Uganda soon, where we hope to commune with mountain gorillas and chimpanzees and hopefully a shoebill. Shoebill would be so cool. It's like kind of an all-time epic bird to try to see. And we plan to do some recording while there and share some of the stories with you all while we're there and with our group of friends that we're traveling with. So keep an eye out for that. I think we will have one more episode between now and our departure. Final thoughts, Alvaro?
I think I talked too much already. Have a good fall. Have a good Halloween. And everybody just go out, bird, and maybe take that idea of just sort of having birds be something that puts you a little bit more in peace is a good one to sort of leave people with.
Right on. Good stuff. Molly, anything else you want to let folks know about before we sign off here?
Yeah, I think I'll kind of piggyback off of that. And I know we already mentioned ornithotherapy. And I also want to call out Birdability. We just had Birdability Week.
Yes.
Last week or the week before?
Last week, I think,
their mission is to make birding for everybody. And they've been in the works for a few years, maybe officially a nonprofit as of this year. But if you go to birdability.org, there are so many resources and so many ways that anybody can help make birding available and something that's an option for everyone to enjoy. It's a really cool site and a really cool organization.
Yeah. Talk about a way you could change people's lives. That's a big one. That's huge. Doing amazing work there. Great. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll be back again here probably in a couple weeks with another new episode. Let us know what you want to talk about. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a good week, guys.
Thanks, everybody.